get some weed control growing up through their sub base here pretty quick, I'm guessing. It just seems like we're kind of taking the shorts, and it's like, yeah, so what?
Yeah, so according to the schedule, so I gave you the end date of September 19th. According to the schedule they provided, the week of the 15th is when they anticipate being here to pay.
August 15th
Yeah,
to set up a plant?
well, to start paying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it is what it is.
So that's the update on that project. Project number 2, Central Avenue, they are finishing up, they should finish up sidewalks here shortly. And all will be left of that is to seed. But that one went pretty quick, I believe. There has been, I don't know if you've heard it, lately Greg has taken phone calls, I've taken phone calls and spoke to people. There's a few people who are starting to have concerns about some of the sidewalks that have been poured back, because they're different than what they were before.
Okay.
You know, they were engineered, they were approved by DOT. I mean, there's certain ADA requirements we need to try to meet, you know, 100% is preferred, but then you gotta try to meet them as best you can.
When you say different, what are the complaints? I haven't had it.
Well, look at them. I mean, you can look at
There's some dips.
old pictures of, they're just not, you know, a lot of the transition used to happen from the intersection of the 2 sidewalks towards the street. In this case, we went back a little bit further into the lengths of the sidewalks to try to accomplish better grades.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what's throwing people off right now. And the street was raised a little bit, so that affected how grades were put in. Some of the sidewalks, because of the grade of and elevation of Central, and then the adjoining streets that come off of those, elevation changes may cause water to have to flow, if it does, down the sidewalk and out the other way. But, you know, so some people are getting concerned about the way they appear to look right now. But they'll do the finishing up of grading and everything should be okay.
There was one of those sidewalk intersections that I noticed too, that I thought, oh, that looks like it's gonna be icy
Yeah.
all winter long.
They were all, I mean, when we do a project like this, you have, any engineer has to do cut sheets or do sheets for each ADA, the ramp and the sidewalks, and those with elevations at certain points, those get approved by DOT because it's that state money. So all of that stuff is shot in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Third thing, Highway 3, right behind us here. The DOT, or railroad came in and replaced their rail a few weeks back. The next step in that project was a DOT project to redo that crossing and put the crossing arms in. That was bid through the DOT. They got no bidders. Nobody bid on it. So they're gonna regroup and let it again this winter with construction in '23. So that's been pushed back a year.
So putting an island in?
Put a median in.
Are we gonna have to adjust our parking lot out here?
We are,
Take one of our
the
entries?
far east entrance, that's the smoothest,
Mhm.
is going away.
Okay. Okay.
Because that will come in,
In the middle of the
That's-
island? I would think
that's
so,
it.
I would think so. Right.
so there'll be a median from First Avenue to basically Second Avenue. So how people like to cut and use Lincoln, that can't happen anymore, because there'll be a median past it.
Unless you have a 4-wheel drive.
Unless you want to go over the median,
Or a motorcycle.
not recommended.
Is that legal?
I just wanted to let you know that project has been pushed back a year.
After that's done, what would it be, 2 railroad crossings that don't have arms in town?
Out by the golf course does not, well, if we go all the way out to
Six.
yeah, Marble does. Marble does.
Yeah, 6 does.
Yep, so by Park Road won't, by the golf course. 4th Avenue won't. The First Street crossing won't.
And 4th.
And then we get to the next one, so First Avenue does not, 2nd Avenue does not. And the rest should. Next thing, probably within the next month, I'll be bringing forward the plywood 1B plans. So where it will end up on 1A north of Merrill to C38. Those are ready to go to DOT and get that whole scheduling done. So within the next month, that should happen. Bridge repair, our large bridge south of town that had the fire, those plans are, they're finishing up the final drawings for that. So I'd anticipate in the next month, that will come forward for approval and get that out for bid. I've been working on a couple committees have met on the ARPA funds. So I've been working on that list to bring to council. I'm still waiting on 2 estimates on projects. Once I get those, then I'll bring that full list to council. I will be going down, August 9th. The DOT Commission will be having their meeting in Sioux City. They kind of travel around the state having their meetings. So I'll be attending that as part of plywood. There'll be a short presentation by that committee to the commission on where we are, just make them fully aware of where we are, where we plan on going, any kind of help that we may ask of DOT. So be a short presentation there. White paint. This would be typically the type of time of year where our street crews would be out repainting stripes, crosswalks around schools, those types of things. Apparently there's a shortage of white paint. According to Scott Knife, I ordered white paint. We typically get it through the DOT at $47 a gallon. He ordered it last October, still haven't received any. So he did find some at Vogel up north. So he's gonna purchase enough up there to get at least our crosswalks painted before school. And then anything else we can get done until we run out. That comes at $94 a gallon. So, doubled. So just in case people start asking, boy, the lines are faded, and there's a reason. And then the last thing I want to touch on, I guess it's kind of maybe a plea to all property owners in town. You probably noticed this as you drive around town, but this type of weather, weeds do better than grass.
I thought it was just my yard.
No, weeds do better than grass. But if you drive around, especially the weeds, I've asked property owners to look at their properties, especially at the back of their curbs. You can drive around and you can see 3-foot tall weeds that get missed by a mower, or the weeds that are grown over the curb. Try to get them with your mower if you have to. get off your mower and pull them. It just gives a better appearance to the community if you do that. I should have looked right into the camera when it said that. That's what I have.
Jacob?
Okay, last meeting, it was asked about, city debt. And so I just wanted to kind of give a brief overview of, city debt, where we're at, what it looks like. I believe the question specifically was on debt capacity. So the state of Iowa does set a debt capacity that the city can have on general obligation debt. So that's based on the total assessed values within the city. So last year at our audit, our geo debt capacity was 45 million. I would anticipate that'll go up a little bit at this year's audit. So of that 45 million, we have roughly 10 million of debt, just over 10 million outstanding as of June 30th of this year. Most of that is wastewater. When we built a new industrial plant out west of town. So that's 6.6 million of it. We have another 2.5 million roughly. It is TIF revenue backed, just for different TIF projects that we've done. And then we have $500,000 water revenue debt, which was for some meters that we replaced back in 2012, I think. And then we have a smaller around $500,000 of just direct borrowing that we have. Most of those are interest-free loans that we've gotten through Northwest REC, just for different smaller projects. So total, we're looking at right around that $10 million total city debt. Most of it does go against that general obligation debt. And that wastewater one, we did refinance the geo debt.
It wouldn't have to be though, right? I mean,
It wouldn't have
those
to
could be.
Correct. Correct. So
That's
most
That's
what
what I was, no, that's what I was
explain
gonna, I
that.
was gonna actually ask that very question, so, since they are wastewater and water, those really aren't GO, right?
correct, yeah. So that's total city debt.
That's
$10 million.
that's the way they were financed.
Structured.
Correct.
Okay.
They could always be structured in a different way against those funds.
And when you look at the enterprise funds, so water, wastewater, those ones, they don't have a limitation, that the general fund has. Basically, the limitation there is you have to be able to have enough revenues to cover it.
Right.
So,
Thank you,
That's
Jake.
all I have.
Thanks, Jake, yes.
All right. Mark, would you mind making some comments about your first week? Share with us what you can. Maybe we'll get Mark added to this discussion list, I don't know, going forward.
At some regular interval.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say maybe not every week.
Right.
Yeah, quarterly or something.
Yeah.
Sure, be happy to. It was a good first week. Getting out there and making introductions. I've met with several of you already. And just trying to understand, our current situation in Lamar's. Just an observation. Lamar's has done an outstanding job of growing over the years. You look at the industrial park and the setup for the future with the land that we own. Look at downtown development with some of the reinvestment that's happening downtown, such as Vandermeer Bakery and the signage that went across downtown and some of the other things that are going on. And then the residential development, especially when you go to the south end of town. As I was a kid, we rode dirt bikes out there, but it's kind of interesting to see. Meeting with some of our business leaders, such as Steve, and learning about, what they have planned for the future, and there's a lot of good things gonna happen in the future. And so the common theme that I've been hearing, and that's something we need to work through, is how do we take all of these great projects and how do we come up with a unified, comprehensive plan for the community long-term. And so we need to set a vision, we need to come up with some strategies and then put some tactics in place to achieve those. But we need to do that as a community, not just the city. And so everybody understands everybody's situation. And I think once you take a step back, take a look at the community, identify the strengths and weaknesses, and then put that plan together, I think you'll find that future growth will be more intentional, and it should be a lot of fun. Other observation is it's fun coming back to town, and although I'm here every week, learning about the next generation and who their parents are. It's kind of fun to find out who's who and continue to make those connections. There is some pent-up demand for some services through economic development. With Neil being gone for nearly a year, there's a list of folks that don't necessarily have to have the help, but it makes their life a lot easier when you have someone in economic development to help them navigate through the barriers. And really, the biggest job we have with existing business and potential business is how to make it smooth for them to come to our community so they have a great experience. So quality of life things, with the plywood trail we went to Sioux City, say what you will about trails, it's the #1 requested amenity in communities throughout the state of Iowa, and it does create a destination. So, and the betterment projects that have happened over the years, it's kind of neat to see what's happened in this community over the years. So good for you guys with all that you've done, and I'm excited about being a part of it going forward. So, and we'll be moving here on August 30th.
Well, congratulations. I was gonna ask you how the house search was going, so, but evidently well. All right, good. Thanks, Mark.
Did you give him a heads up, or is that just excellent extemporaneous presentation?
Completely off the cuff.
All right.
Mark, do you have anything?
I have a few things.
Sure.
Last night at the bike club meeting, they brought up a few things, and I said I'd bring them forward. One thing is there's still a big problem with people parking on the trail by the dog park. So some suggestions, they wondered if maybe we could put up a sign or paint the very far edge yellow, kind of to give people an idea not to cross that. I think they talked about some of those posts, you put in front of something you want somebody to run over, which I think that would be a little costly, and how far would you space them? Something has to change out there, because not only is it kind of inconvenient to the people using the trail, but I think it's probably not going to be good for the trail, because I can't imagine reported to have people driving on it. I mean, especially if they're just catching the edge of it. So that's the first thing. Second thing, they were wondering if we could look into maybe signs directing people to the way to get on the rec trail, like out at the park or whatever. I mean, when they paved that little strip through the campground parking, it gave people an idea, hey, it just doesn't end here, you can keep going to the stop sign and it's across the street. But if you don't know the trail, there's a lot of people that don't know where to get on or get off, and I don't know how much signage that would be. That's another suggestion. The white paint, that was something we were talking about, like the repainting of bike lanes, and they wondered about 4th Avenue going past Archie's and the fairgrounds. I know we don't paint like a line on most of our streets in the middle, a dotted white line, but they thought that would help delineate and show people where the lanes are, because they're kind of all over the place on that street. Let me see here. Oh yeah, there was apparently a water line break yesterday in the southwest part of town, and there were some people online complaining about, they didn't hear anything about it until they noticed that their laundry was all dirty water and they had muddy water or something like that. I don't know who's in charge of notifying people that. That's just a concern that I wanted to bring forward.
How would they do that?
I have no idea, but I mean, they have to know who's affected by it, right?
Is there a
Not
protocol?
necessarily, they wouldn't know.
They said maybe put it out on Clem or something like that, where at least, some people would know, and then they could share it.
Right.
So, I don't know. I'm just bringing forward concerns that people don't show up here to say, because I feel like that's kind of why I ran.
I will say that they probably have general lawn areas, but a lot of times they have trouble shutting things off and not exactly knowing how it's looped. So when that happens, it's tough to individually pick out who would be affected.
Right, and I'm not saying you'd get a hold of
Sure.
this neighborhood, we just might put it out there that this part of town might experience or something. I know they do that when they flush the hydrants.
I just want to comment on one thing that Mark brought up, and that's about the signage along the bike trail. It's probably about 5 years ago, we put out just a ton of signage showing the bike trail. We had spots on there, especially at like these way stops or rest areas along the way saying, hey, you are here. During the last major flood that we had, just about every single one of them was taken out. And they were double posted 4x4s and just got wiped out. So we probably do have signage available on computer with the printing company. So I guess it's something that we would have to relook at, you know, as far as getting signage put out. I just wanted to make that comment because we did put out, I don't know, 25 or 30 signs along the way, but they haven't been replaced since the flood, so.
Yeah, okay, that's understandable. And then my last thing is still kind of trying to keep the parking by Clark School on the radar. I think we can bring that up at the public safety meeting probably. That's all I have.
Steve? Just a couple of concerns. Cell service during the fair week. I had a number of people complain that they couldn't have calls, get through this because of the amount of cell service that was during the stuff. Do we have any control over any of that, or?
Just over capacity on the tower.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to be in the fair to be affected.
Right. No, that was.
My neighborhood was really bad, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing we can do there, but.
Wi-Fi calling.
I know the fair is trying to get like a mobile hotspot or a hotspot from Verizon, but they're so busy following Ride that they don't really listen, so. Like Brian said, the tower only takes 20-some hookups at a time, so if you're one of those 20, you're doing good, otherwise you wait your turn.
Make it short.
I have no idea how it works, but I know it gets cluttered.
But that would be a concern for emergency communication, or no?
We stick to radios a lot during that time, but.
Well, that's for your emergency, what if I have one?
We have.
Right, I mean, our 911 calls would go through Wi-Fi calls.